Do not listen to this true story. You must have heard the name of Jean and exorcism many times, but have you ever thought that this would happen to you? Please be with me. In the winter of 1970, Roger and Carolyn Parent moved into a strange two-story mansion with their five daughters. Apparently, this house did not show what fear and terror it hid in its heart. For a long time, the parents were looking for a dream house. The family was satisfied with this move. A house with 10 bedrooms and enough space for all the girls and had a wonderful view. From the first hours of entering the house, they felt that something unpleasant had affected their lovely home. Maybe the issue goes back to its own history. This property was first built in 1980. 8 generations of the same family were born and lived in this emirate, and eventually died, which was not always normal. For example, Miss John, at the age of 93, he has hanged himself in the stable of the house, and he has also committed several child murders or suicides in this house. Even people were frozen. The seller had advised Roger not to turn off the lights in the house all night. Almost all the members of this family experienced outwardly events in various forms, but among them, the mother of the family was more exposed to ghosts. One of the mothers describes it like this once with a woman. I faced him in a grey dress, whose head seemed to be on one side, and said in an unpleasant voice, "Get out. I will drive you out of this house with darkness and death." Days after another were spent with strange and inexplicable events. The clocks at home always fell asleep at a certain time, beds were shaking, things were floating in the air, and strange noises were heard. The chair would be moved when the ghost entered. Toys and paintings would fall from the wall. This was only part of the problems of living in this emirate. The face of fear would soon show itself to the family. The entrance to the house would open in the middle of the night. Then it would be closed loudly. Some doors would shake, and some would be locked. Once, as if someone shook the whole house in the middle of the night, someone would kick the girls and scratch their faces. But the worst part of the story happened when an evil spirit targeted Caroline and started torturing her. This woman's name was Beth Shibata. He was born in Rhode Island in 1812 and spent his entire life with his wife, Judson Sherman, in Harrisville. It is said that he had 4 children, 3 of whom died in infancy. Although the number of child deaths was high at that time, the death of her children was not normal, especially because there were deep wounds on the children's heads, as if a sharp instrument like a needle had pierced their skulls. A court was held for him, but due to lack of evidence, they voted him innocent. Finally, he ended his life behind the stable. His doctor said he had never seen anything like this before. His body was so dry, as if it was made of stone. At first, the ghost used physical pressure to force Caroline to leave the house, slapping or crushing her. But gradually this torture became worse and attacked her with fire, and wounded her with something like a needle. Caroline says that I was lying on the couch. Everything was normal when I felt that the house was cold. Then I felt something sharp hit my leg, and my leg filled with blood. But Caroline and her family did not intend to leave the house and wanted to stay there. It was exactly at this time the angry spirit decided to attack Caroline from the inside. These attacks were much more. They had gained a lot. As soon as he entered Lauren's house, he felt the dark force from inside Caroline. It seemed that an angry spirit had captured this house and one of its residents. One of these assumptions was that this famous family was not indigenous. The famous couple tried to cleanse the house of ghosts. Of course, in the process of doing this, they noticed other interesting facts, namely that Bathsheba is not the only ghost inhabiting this mansion. The spirits of the deceased are constantly alive in this house, and some of them, being kind, was even the spirit of the cleaner. Enduring this torture was beyond Caroline's tolerance, and the Warrens came to the conclusion that perhaps exorcism was the only way to save Caroline. Caroline's eldest daughter says about the exorcism night, "That night was one of the worst nights of my life. I imagined that my mother would die under so much pressure." He was speaking in a strange voice that I had never heard. Strong force that did not belong to this world, in my opinion, threw him 20 feet away into another room. The story of fear and dread in this house was released in the movie Conjuring in 2013. But the real end of the story of the Perrin family is not as the movie says. Contrary to what you see in the movie, the Warren couple does not manage to completely solve the problem of the Perrin family. At first, everything seemed to be improving, but very soon the situation worsened. In fact, it seems that instead of solving the problem, the Warrens had apparently added to the angle of the dark forces. Due to dire economic situation at that time, the parents had to continue living in that house, and they went through scary years. Finally, in 1980, the family managed to sell its property and was saved from this fear. The parents moved to Georgia, where the distance increased with the house. However, according to available reports, supernatural forces chased them to the south. The distance was very low. The next residents of the house suffered from this situation. The man who bought the house left the house one day without any reason and without removing any of women's screams. This house currently has a lot of visitors. The current owner says that it still makes smokes on its own and things move and nothing is in its place.